From the very first winner being declared sole survivor and walking away with $1 million
is Rich. Congratulations, Rich.
to a contestant throwing his tribe's rice and beans on the ground in a shocking meltdown. This is the story of 10 Survivor contestants whose lives took a dark turn after the cameras stopped rolling. For over 2 decades, Survivor has given us heroes, villains, and everything in between. But some contestants didn't just play the game on the island. They crossed lines in the real world that led to handcuffs, courtrooms, and prison cells. Some were winners, some were villains, some were early boots. But they all share one thing in common. They couldn't escape the consequences of their actions once the game was over. These are their stories. Richard Hatch was the very first winner of Survivor. When Survivor Borneo aired in 2000, Richard became the blueprint for every strategic player who came after him. He formed the first alliance with Rudy Bosch, Kelly Wigglesworth, and Sue Hawk. He called it the Targi Alliance.
So the alliances have begun, and I didn't even have to do much about it. We really could control our fate if we stick together.
He walked around camp naked to intimidate his tribe mates. He manipulated votes with surgical precision. Richard knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't there to make friends. He was there to win. And he did. At the final tribal council, Sue Hawk delivered her famous rats and snakes speech, calling Kelly a rat and Richard a snake. But she voted for Richard anyway. She respected his game. And on August 23, 2000, Jeff Probst read the final vote and declared Richard the winner. He walked away with $1 million check. He became a celebrity overnight. He changed reality TV forever. But Richard had a problem. He didn't want to pay taxes on his winnings. In 2006, a federal jury convicted him of 2 counts of tax evasion and 1 count of filing a false return. He had failed to report $1.4 million in income to the IRS, including his Survivor prize, his earnings from a radio show, and rental income from properties he owned. The government wasn't playing games. Richard was sentenced to 51 months in federal prison. But before the tax case, there was another arrest. In 2001, Richard was charged with domestic assault after allegedly pushing his former boyfriend, Glenn Boyanowski, during an argument at his Rhode Island home. Boyanowski claimed he went to Richard's house to ask about his job status, and things escalated. Richard claimed self-defense, saying Boyanowski tried to force his way inside. The case was eventually dismissed, but it was a preview of the legal troubles that would define Richard's post-Survivor life. Richard served nearly 4 years in prison for tax evasion. When he was released in 2009, he still owed the IRS over $2 million. He was ordered back to prison in 2011 for an additional 9 months after failing to refile his taxes properly. To this day, Richard maintains that he was targeted because of his sexuality and his fame, but the courts didn't see it that way. The first winner of Survivor became the first to go to prison. If you think refusing to pay taxes is bad, wait until you hear about the contestant who shot a puppy with an arrow. And somehow that's not even the worst thing on this list. Brian Heidick won Survivor Thailand in 2002 by playing one of the coldest, most calculated games in the show's history. He treated Survivor like a business transaction. He manipulated his tribe mates without remorse. He lied to their faces and smiled while doing it. Brian formed a tight alliance with Clay Jordan, a 46-year-old restaurant owner. Together, they controlled every vote. Brian told people exactly what they wanted to hear, then voted them out without hesitation. He called it playing the game. His tribe mates called it ruthless. At the final tribal council, the jury tore into him. They accused him of being fake, of using people, of having no heart. When Jeff Probst declared him the winner, beating Clay Jordan 4-3, he didn't celebrate. He just nodded, like he'd expected it all along, like it was just another business deal closed. But 4 years later, Brian made headlines for something far worse than lying on a reality show. In 2006, Brian was arrested in Georgia and charged with animal cruelty and battery after allegedly shooting a puppy with a bow and arrow. According to reports, Brian claimed the puppy was a coyote that was threatening his property. He said he shot it in self-defense. But when authorities arrived, they found a small dog with an arrow through its body. Brian was also accused of pointing the bow and arrow at a neighbour during the confrontation. He was arrested and released on bond. The case was eventually resolved, but the damage to his reputation was done. Brian had already been one of the most controversial winners in Survivor history. Now he was known as the guy who shot a puppy. Brian's arrest was shocking, but at least no one went to prison. The next contestant wasn't so lucky. His crime would land him behind bars for years. Michael Skupin is remembered for one of the most shocking moments in Survivor history. During Survivor the Australian Outback in 2001, Michael was a fan favourite. He was the tribe's provider. He caught fish. He built shelter. He kept morale high. But on day 17, disaster struck. Michael passed out and fell face first into the campfire, suffering severe burns to his hands and face.
And I passed out.
Look at these things.
He had to be medically evacuated. It was one of the most dramatic exits the show had ever seen. Jeff Probst called it one of the scariest moments in Survivor history. 11 years later, Michael returned to compete on Survivor Philippines in 2012. He was older, wiser, and determined to finish what he started. He made it all the way to the final 3, alongside Malcolm Freeberg and Denise Stapley. But he lost in a landslide vote, receiving 0 jury votes. Still, Michael was proud. He had come back from one of the worst injuries in Survivor history and made it to the end. But in 2016, Michael's life took a dark turn. He was arrested in Michigan and charged with possession of child pornography. Investigators found thousands of illegal images on his computer during a raid tied to a separate fraud investigation. In November 2016, a jury convicted Michael on 4 counts of possessing child sexually abusive material. He was also found guilty of larceny by conversion after scamming investors in a Ponzi scheme. He had stolen over $200,000 from people who trusted him. Michael was sentenced to 1 to 4 years in prison. He served his time and was released, but he's now a registered sex offender for life. The man who survived a fall into a fire couldn't survive the consequences of his own actions. Michael's crimes were horrific, but the next contestant's arrest was even more recent, and the charges are some of the most serious on this list. Brandon Hantz is the nephew of Russell Hantz, one of the most infamous villains in Survivor history. Brandon first appeared on Survivor South Pacific in 2011, where he struggled with the pressure of living up to his uncle's legacy. He was emotional, unpredictable, and deeply conflicted about playing a ruthless game. He wanted to play with honor. He wanted to be different from Russell, but the game got to him. He returned for Survivor Karamoan in 2013, and that's when everything exploded. Brandon had been spiraling for days. He felt betrayed by his tribe. He felt disrespected by Philip Shepherd, and he snapped. Brandon had a complete meltdown. He screamed at his tribemates. He called them names, and then he grabbed the tribe's rice and beans and dumped them on the ground. He threatened to get physical with Philip Shepherd. He said he wanted to make it a fist fight. Jeff Probst had to hold an emergency tribal council on the beach to vote Brandon out before things got violent. It was one of the most uncomfortable moments in Survivor history. Brandon left the game in tears, apologizing to his family. But Brandon's troubles didn't end when he left the island. In February 2025, Brandon was arrested in Houston and charged with conspiracy to commit racketeering activity and arson. He was named in a federal indictment alongside 13 other members and associates of the Bandidos outlaw motorcycle gang. According to the indictment, the Bandidos were involved in violent crimes, including arson, assault, and drug trafficking. Brandon faces up to 40 years in federal prison if convicted. The case is still ongoing, but one thing is clear. Brandon's life after Survivor has been anything but peaceful. Brandon's arrest shocked the Survivor community, but the next contestant's crime was just as disturbing, and it happened years before anyone knew about it. Silas Gaither appeared on Survivor Africa in 2001 as a 24-year-old bartender from Tennessee. He was cocky, he was confident, and he thought he had the game figured out. Silas was the leader of the Younger Samburu Alliance, a group of younger contestants who
tried to take control of their tribe. They voted out the older players one by one, but when a tribe swap happened on day 13, Silas was sent to the rival Boran tribe. He was outnumbered, he had no allies, and he was blindsided at the next tribal council. It was a memorable moment in Survivor history. The cocky young player who thought he was running the game got played. Silas faded into obscurity after the show ended. Most fans forgot about him, until 2019. That year, Silas was indicted in Tennessee on charges of rape and aggravated assault. The alleged incident took place in 2018, but details were not made public. In 2021, Silas pleaded guilty to aggravated assault as part of a plea deal. The rape charges were dropped. He was sentenced to 6 years of probation with no jail time. The lenient sentence sparked outrage online, with many questioning how someone accused of such a serious crime could avoid prison. Silas has stayed out of the public eye since the conviction, but his name will forever be associated with one of the darkest chapters in Survivor history. Silas avoided prison, but the next contestant wasn't so lucky. His arrest led to a conviction and years behind bars. John Raymond appeared on Survivor Thailand in 2002, the same season as Brian Heidick. He was a 40-year-old pastor from Louisiana. He was religious, he was soft-spoken, and he was voted out early in the game. John was part of the Chue Gan tribe, but he never made a strong connection with anyone. He was seen as weak in challenges and expendable in strategy. He was voted out on day 12, finishing in 14th place. He didn't make much of an impact on the show, and most fans forgot about him after the season ended. But in 2022, John was arrested in Louisiana on 3 counts of cruelty to juveniles. The details of the case were not widely publicized, but reports indicated that John, who worked as a school headmaster, had physically disciplined students in ways that crossed legal boundaries. In 2024, a jury convicted him on all 3 counts. He was sentenced to prison, though the exact length of his sentence has not been confirmed. John's arrest was a reminder that even the most forgettable contestants can have the darkest secrets. John's crimes were serious, but at least he was convicted. The next contestant was arrested, but the charges were eventually dropped. Johnny Fairplay is one of the most infamous villains in Survivor history. He appeared on Survivor Pearl Islands in 2003, where he orchestrated one of the most legendary lies in reality TV history. Johnny was a schemer from day one. He lied, he manipulated, he backstabbed, and he loved every second of it. But his greatest move came during the loved one's visit on day 30. During a loved one's visit, Johnny's best friend Thunder D arrived with devastating news. What did he tell the tribe that made everyone cry?
We'll be all right now.
He told them Johnny's grandmother had died. The tribe was heartbroken for him. They gave him sympathy. They didn't vote him out. Johnny even won the reward challenge because his opponents threw it to him out of respect. It was all a lie. His grandma was fine. She was at home watching the show. Jeff Probst later called it the greatest lie ever told on Survivor. Johnny had manipulated everyone's emotions for strategic gain. He made it all the way to the final 3. Johnny returned for Survivor Micronesia in 2008, but he quit after just 3 days. He said he wasn't mentally prepared to play again. In 2020, Johnny was arrested in Virginia on larceny charges. According to reports, the charges were related to his grandmother, though the exact details were never made public. In 2021, the case was dismissed. Johnny walked free, but the irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who lied about his grandma dying was arrested for allegedly stealing from her. Johnny avoided jail, but the next contestant wasn't so lucky. Her arrest made national headlines, and she's still denying it ever happened. Jenna Maraska won Survivor The Amazon in 2003 at the age of 21, making her one of the youngest winners in the show's history. She was a fan favorite, known for her beauty, her charm, and her strategic gameplay. Jenna formed a tight alliance with Heidi Strobel, and together they dominated the post-merge game. When Heidi was voted out at the final 5, Jenna won 3 immunity challenges in a row to secure her spot in the final 2. At the final Tribal Council, she beat Matthew von Ertfelder by a vote of 6-1. She was young, she was rich. She was on top of the world. After Survivor, she appeared on The Amazing Race and became a successful model. She dated fellow Survivor winner Ethan Zohn for over a decade. But in 2018, Jenna's life took a dark turn. She was found unconscious in her car in Pennsylvania, allegedly under the influence of drugs. Paramedics revived her with Narcan, a medication used to reverse opioid overdoses. According to reports, Jenna was arrested and charged with DUI and possession of drug paraphernalia. Police also said she bit a police officer during the arrest, but Jenna has publicly disputed the arrest. She claims she was never arrested or charged, and that the reports were false. To this day, the truth remains unclear. What is clear is that Jenna has struggled with addiction. Her ex-fiancé, fellow Survivor contestant Ethan Zohn, has spoken publicly about her battles with substance abuse. Jenna's story is a reminder that even the brightest stars can fall into darkness. Jenna's case is still disputed, but the next contestant's arrest is undeniable, and it's one of the strangest on this list. Ace Gordon appeared on Survivor Gabon in 2008 as a 27-year-old photographer from London. He was known for his posh accent, his manipulative gameplay, and his alliance with Sugar Kipper. Ace thought he was the smartest person on the island. He formed an alliance with Sugar, a young woman who had found the hidden immunity idol, and he immediately started treating that idol like it was his. When Sugar found the hidden immunity idol, what did Ace immediately do? He told her it was ours. He treated her idol like it belonged to him. He even convinced her to give it to him for safekeeping. Ace told Sugar who to vote for. He told her when to use the idol. He controlled every aspect of her game. He thought he had Sugar wrapped around his finger. He even considered her hidden immunity idol as his own. But what Ace didn't know was that Sugar was playing him the whole time. At Tribal Council, Ace was blindsided. His closest ally had turned on him. Sugar wrote Acehole on her vote. He made it to the final 10 before being voted out. In 2008, shortly after his season aired, Ace was arrested in Florida on charges of disorderly intoxication and resisting arrest without violence. According to reports, Ace got drunk at a hotel bar and got into a fight with another patron. He was thrown out of the bar and arrested. The details of the arrest were not widely reported, but the charges were eventually dropped in 2009. Ace has stayed out of trouble since then, but his arrest remains a footnote in Survivor history. Ace's arrest was minor compared to the others on this list, but the next contestant's legal troubles were anything but minor. Russell Hantz is one of the most controversial contestants in Survivor history. He appeared on Survivor Samoa in 2009. Where he played one of the most aggressive, cutthroat games ever seen. Russell didn't just lie, he sabotaged, he destroyed, he terrorized. One of his most infamous moves? Burning his tribe mates' socks. He hid machetes. He lied to everyone. He did whatever it took to get ahead. He found hidden immunity idols without clues. He controlled every vote, but the jury hated him. They refused to reward his gameplay. He returned for Survivor Heroes vs. Villains in 2010. Where he made it to the final 3, but lost in a landslide vote. Again, the jury refused to vote for him. Russell was bitter. He believed he deserved to win. He called the jury stupid. He said they didn't understand the game. In 2010, Russell was arrested in Lafayette, Louisiana on a charge of simple battery. The details of the incident were not made public, but the case never went to trial. The district attorney declined to file charges and Russell walked free. Russell has stayed out of legal trouble since then, but his arrest remains a reminder that even the most famous contestants aren't immune to the law.